All right, welcome back to Clash of Culture. I know it's been a while. I know Steven did a solo video, so it's been a while since you've seen us two together. But with bowl season going on, life, we wanted to take the opportunity to take a little break, make sure we got back to family. But we want to get hot and heavy as we get into bowl season. Before we
Hot
get into
heavy
bowl,
is crazy.
wow, is that crazy? Oh
Keep
my
going, bro.
goodness,
We're living that in. Keep going. Come on.
All right. But before we get into bowl game breakdowns, we want to research those a little bit more. And the big question there is who's playing and who's not. But we just finished National Letter of Intent Day, National Signing Day. The first one, it's open. The window's open from the 20th to the 22nd. There's obviously a second one that'll happen in February. But most of the big name players signed their letter of intent yesterday. So, Steven, what's your first thoughts on National Letter of Intent Day?
Well, for me, obviously a lot of big names had question marks. I think the biggest name was the Dylan Raiola situation, committed to Georgia for the seemingly what it feels like, the last year. I don't know how long it really was, but as long as we've been covering college football on the channel, I feel like it's been the whole time, which has been about almost a year now. And he flipped to Nebraska. Obviously, we had Alex on the show who did the Nebraska preview with us, one of my childhood friends. He's very happy about that. It just shows kind of the NIL and how powerful money is in college football now.
Well, and I got to say for Raiola, he is a Nebraska legacy. His dad was a big name Nebraska player. So, I think there's a little bit of that as well. There was that pull for him to play at Nebraska. His dad, Dominic Raiola, also played there. And like I said, I think there was a little bit of a pull for him to play Nebraska.
His uncle coaches there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, his uncle coaches there. But yeah, a lot of big names, obviously. I know Cam Coleman was committed somewhere, and then he flipped to Auburn in the last couple of weeks. So I know we have a few Auburn fans on the channel. I was happy about that. There's a few names also that haven't signed, that have been committed for a while. I know Ryan Williams. I think he's like the number 2 or number 3 receiver.
So what poll do you look at?
I look at 24/7 Sports.
Okay, so I have Ryan Williams as the number 3 receiver.
Me too.
Yeah.
Are you looking at 24/7 Sports as well?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he's committed to Alabama. He hasn't signed though. If you guys have been on the live shows with us, Bama, ironically, obviously he's a big Alabama fan, but he was telling me about him and how he hasn't signed. Colorado has a verbal
story.
Colorado has Jordan Seaton, offensive tackle, number 1 offensive tackle, which is a really good pickup. I think obviously offensive line was the biggest question mark for them. So get it if they're able to secure him, and I mean secure him as far as sign. That is a very good grab for Colorado, because Colorado is, the worst team of all of these kind of, commits on here. All these other commits are going to blue blood. So I think that's, a really good command. I've been on record kind of bashing Colorado, but that is a very good pickup if they're able to get him.
So the word is that Seaton may be going to Maryland. And this is where NIL money and we're in a different era of college football. And they're saying that may be the reason he has not signed. Now, it's actually crazy because if you guys have been following the Seaton recruitment, he came out after verbally committing to Colorado, basically saying, I don't understand why more people aren't going to go play with Deion and yada, yada, yada. And then he is showing some hesitation, and literally he committed to Colorado a couple weeks ago. So it's not like it's been a long time.
And it's crazy. I follow this Instagram page. It's called Hayes Fawcett. I'm not sure if you follow him. If you don't, you should. But so he was on Instagram Live with him last night at 10 Pacific time, and I saw Hayes Fawcett was live, and I was like, I've never seen him live, so I just clicked it, and it was him and this dude that we're talking about, this offensive lineman.
Oh, what'd he say?
I only listened for 5 seconds because I was in the middle of doing something, so I clicked it, and he was just saying it was all I heard him say was it was a blast being up there, and then I was like, I closed the app because I think I was doing NBA bets or something, so I just wanted to check on my score. But yeah, so I just heard it for a second, and by the time I went back in there, it was gone. So I'm not sure how long he's in there for, but I wish I could have seen that conversation. But a lot of guys signed, obviously, but there's still a good amount of top 50 players who haven't signed. But I know Armando Blunt, a lot of players flipped from Florida State, and it was kind of weird to see. They lost KJ Bolden. He was the number 1 safety in the class. He was committed to Florida State, flipped to Georgia. They lost defensive lineman Armando. I just had his name 1 second. Armando Blunt. He was the number 9 overall defensive lineman, and he flipped to Miami.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of weird because it's not like those two players wouldn't have played. I think both of those players would have been starters. Obviously, Verse is going to be gone. Now, I don't know what the depth was like for Florida State on the defensive side of the ball. It doesn't get talked too much as offense, obviously. But I think it's kind of weird. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, those were the top 2 players committed to their class. They have one more player committed. I think he's the number 1 tight end, if I'm not mistaken. So they lost 2 of their top 3 recruits, and it dropped them back like 10 spots in the team rankings. I mean, I was talking to another friend of mine who's a Florida State fan, Christian. I mean, he's kind of shocked by it. I wasn't shocked by the KJ Bolden one because it was 50-50 there, but I was shocked by the other one for sure.
Yeah, I think KJ Bolden, I'm not going to say I saw it coming. I thought he still was going to sign to Florida State on signing day. But like you said, I thought that was 50-50. There was rumors about Jeremiah Smith possibly going down to Miami.
Yeah, that was a big one too. That was probably one of the biggest ones too.
And he actually said in his interview that he was about 50-50. He's been a long time Ohio State verbal. And if you guys kind of played this out, there was a long period between when he announced and when he actually sent in his letter of intent. He didn't send his so he announced it about noon. He didn't send his letter of intent in until about midnight. I think Cam Coleman was also supposed to go to. Was he supposed to go to Florida State?
I'm not sure. If Bryce is watching this video, he'll let us know. I don't remember, but I'm in a group chat with them, and I remember
he was supposed to go to Texas A&M.
Oh, okay. So do you know who Micah Hudson is?
I don't.
Or it's either Micah Hudson or Malachi Hudson. He is I don't know if he's in this. Micah Hudson. He's a number 5 receiver. If you haven't watched his highlight tape, you got to watch his highlight tape. I found him a year ago. He's committed to Texas Tech. So he's a top 20 player.
Oh, okay. I know he is. Only because
really
I seen weird. I only know who he is because I seen the one name committed to Texas Tech in the top 20.
So his high school is the same color as Ohio State. They look like Ohio State. Exactly like it. It's really weird. But he has a really good highlight tape. I saw him a few months back, and when I saw him commit to Texas Tech, I was like, what the heck? That's a big grab for them. But I think I know you weren't with me when I did the video on the transfer portal. So I kind of want to know your thoughts on the transfer portal, who you think won the portal, who do you think benefits the most, who you think loses the most, stuff like that.
Yeah, so one, if you say who benefits the most, it's obviously players. But I do get concerned that this is now creating an era where players are, basically you got a bunch of players, and we were just talking about Malachi Nelson decommitting transferring out of USC. You now are in an era where players are not going to wait for playing time. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's going to force coaches to have to put players in, maybe at least before they're ready to get some playing time. I give kudos to Colorado, who was basically able to recreate an offensive line. Deion Sanders mentioned that, and that's probably my early winner. What Colorado was able to do in the offensive line. But like I said, my biggest winner is the players, the fact and the ability that they have, the ability to kind of move as they want to. And now, did you see there's like a court ruling that you can't limit how many times they transfer, that this is now actually in the courts. There's still some rulings that need to happen, but in the meantime, you cannot limit a player from transferring as many times as they want to. If that gets voted in, you may see a player who leaves college and has gone to 4 or 5 different schools in their time in college.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really agree with it, but I did see Joe Klatt. He had made a post on Instagram, and it kind of I was like, wow, I didn't look at it that way, but NIL may balance out college football more because
I think it will.
All the best players aren't going to the same 2-3 schools. And I've never thought about it that way. So I guess we'll see in the next 2 to 3 years how the landscape looks.
The hard part, and I would say one of the biggest losers in this are small schools, because a small school may get a good player, and maybe it's just some guy who kind of fell under the radar in terms of his recruiting. Maybe he didn't get stars, but he goes to a small school, really breaks out. Well, those guys are now transferring to big schools. So you find somebody, a diamond in the rough at a small school, and now you're losing, star players to go play at big schools. Now, again, I appreciate their flexibility, their ability to go play on a big stage, but I think it's going to hurt small schools.
It's almost like D1 schools, the bottom tier D1 schools are becoming JUCOs. That's like the way I see it. And a perfect example would be Jordan Addison. He had a crazy career at Pitt and then, dipped out to USC to go play with Caleb Williams. It's literally the same situation as that, which I get, but I think it takes away from, the meaning of college football. We saw Zay Flowers thug it out at Boston College and not leave and say, I had multi-million-dollar offers and I didn't want to go. So it's kind of just like a push and a pull on, what players are going to go do that and kind of their career path and the route they want to take. But before we head out, I kind of want to know, what is your thoughts on Ohio State's signing day and then their transfer portal?
Obviously the big pull for us was Jeremiah Smith. I think we finished with the number 4 class, but we actually had a smaller class. I think we only got 20 players, but we had the second highest per recruit rating. So I'm happy there. I think we were able to, we could talk about Jeremiah Smith. I think we have a great receiving core coming back anyway, so that's not necessarily a position of need. But we're able to solidify the offensive line, which again, and I don't think it's a weakness in every game, but it has been a weakness against Michigan. We weren't able really to run the ball on them great the last time we played them this past year. I think we were able to do the things that we were able to do, needed to do. Unfortunately, we lost some recruits, just like everybody does. We lost the wide receiver. We lost the defensive lineman. But everybody loses recruits. I don't think that's a knock. Overall, I'm happy with the class. What about you and Clemson's class?
I like it. I think, but Clemson, obviously they got this notion that we don't use the portal and everything like that. So it's kind of weird. If you notice, at least I notice the kind of stuff. You're obviously not a Clemson fan, so you probably don't. But Clemson doesn't ever really get recruits to flip to them or from them. And so, when everybody was talking about all these players flipping, I never really had any concern about us losing anybody. But I knew we weren't going to get somebody, in the top 20 out of nowhere. Dabo, I've noticed with him, he's going to recruit the guys that he wants, and he's going to show love to those guys. It's kind of like with the DJ situation. He rode with him literally till the wheels fell off at the end. So as far as the recruiting goes, obviously we got Sammy Brown. We got a top 5 receiver in the position ranking. So I think that's big for us. We haven't really got a big name. Yeah, we haven't really got a big name receiver in a while. We got TJ Moore, who's another top 20 receiver. I think we got, if I'm not mistaken, we got a high-rated kicker as well. We got a couple of offensive linemen, a couple of defensive linemen, some DBs. But our team was so young this year that this recruiting class really didn't mean much. And I don't want to sound like arrogant, but, we had the most snaps of any freshman or of any team by freshman this year by a lot. Like it was almost like 1,000 snaps or something.
Yeah. So
we're not losing much as a team on the team as a whole. I think we're losing like 5 or 6 starters. I know a few guys haven't announced yet, but the recruiting class to me wasn't a big deal. The biggest surprise to me though was we didn't sign a quarterback. And that was a little weird. Obviously Cade is going into his junior year now. We have Christopher Vizina, who's going to be a sophomore, but outside of those 2 guys, you don't really know who the future is. And if, let's say, Cade does have a decent enough year to where he can be drafted after this next year, Vizina wouldn't be I wouldn't feel comfortable with him. I would have liked to try to go after another quarterback. So that's my only knock to the recruiting class.
Do you think they get in the portal? Do you think that, and I know, and maybe it's a little overstated. Maybe Dabo lightens his stance a little bit. But do you think they might get in a portal and try to grab somebody?
So I know they've been kind of talking to a few people.
Yeah.
But Dabo kind of doesn't want – he has a lot of pride. And, I get it. Like, everybody at that level making that much money and when you have that much success is going to have pride the way you do things. But if you notice, he's going after, people from D2s and stuff. So, that might be a really good offensive lineman from a small school in New Hampshire or something, So that way he's not going after Keon Coleman. He's not going after Malachi Nelson, to where – if that is the reason why your team is successful, then everybody's going to tell you, see, you should have did it last 2 years. So he's kind of going after the names that aren't known. So it's not as glaring, I think, because I mean, with all the quarterbacks that were available, we could have got one. There's no doubt in my mind that Dabo could have got one because of the last, 10 years. I think Clemson has had as good of quarterbacks as anybody else in college football. So I don't think it's a case where quarterbacks don't want to play there. I just think he didn't try. I don't think.
Yeah, when you say as good, because when you talk about obviously Deshaun and Trevor,
I mean,
Taj,
I would say just Deshaun and Trevor. I mean, Taj wasn't really a super high recruit coming out of high school, but Deshaun was the number one dual threat. Trevor was the number one quarterback.
Player, yeah.
Cade was the number one player, the number one quarterback. So that's three number one quarterbacks in the last 8 recruiting cycles that have gone to Clemson. So it surprises me. It doesn't surprise me that we didn't get anybody because I don't think he's trying to get a quarterback.
I agree.
Because I think if he tried to go get Dylan Gabriel or somebody, they would have went to Clemson. Somebody there was like 10 or 12 really good quarterbacks.
He would have got a good quarterback.
Yeah, he would have gotten somebody.
Yeah.
So that's the only kind of thing I knock is the fact that not that we didn't get him in the portal, but that we didn't recruit one. Because now you basically have to get one next recruiting cycle because even if Cade stays for his senior year, you're only giving that guy, 1 year to kind of develop and grow. And unless you go get a guy like Trevor or a guy like Deshaun that are going to be able to play as a true freshman, which is few and far between.
Rare.
Like you're not going to find that
especially championship level football.
Exactly. So as far as the transfer portal goes, I don't think much is really said to go there. Obviously, we lost Toriano Pride. He went to Mizzou, but he got his spot taken. He was the number one corner in the transfer class.
You also lost that safety, Mambuka.
Makuba went to Texas. He's actually from Texas, so he went there. But again, a guy who was battling injury all year. Khalil Barnes stepped up, so I don't think Makuba would have started next year anyways. And if he did, he would have rotated heavily. I know RJ Mickens. He's going to be a senior this year. He entered the portal, but then today announced that he's not leaving, which was kind of weird for me. And the same dude, Alabama's offensive lineman, did that, and like it kind of just makes me weirded out a little bit because you basically say I'm going to leave, and that makes me think like you didn't get the looks that you thought, and now you want to come back.
And maybe that's what it is.
You kind of lose the trust in your teammates, though.
Well, so the question is, because entering the portal, obviously that just means I can leave. Maybe that team re-recruited him. Maybe they went and talked to him. Maybe they enter their name. And let's also remember, we are in the era of NIL. Maybe that's a negotiating tactic. Maybe, hey, I need a bag. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I need some money. Because they're talking about Cam Ward getting $2 million to go to wherever he transfers to. So that may be a way that either a player is getting a bag or they get to really talk to their coach about what their future is going to look like on that team.
So speaking of quarterbacks, this is the last thing we're going to cover really quick. I know we started off with the signing day, but I don't think I talked to you about this. How do you feel about Oregon getting Dante Moore and Dylan Gabriel?
Well, so obviously Dylan Gabriel is only going to be there a year. The thing I don't understand is if Dante Moore was going to leave UCLA with Chip Kelly, a very good quarterback coach, and your concern was, I would assume his concern was playing time as he I don't want to say got benched at the end of the year.
Maybe winning too, though. Maybe winning.
But you're going to not start over Dylan Gabriel. Now, I don't know. I would need to hear from him what that's about because you're literally going to waste another year behind Dylan Gabriel. And you went, I would have respected it if he went. I'm not going to say because at the end of the day, it's his choice. But I would have understood it if he went before Dylan Gabriel and then they also brought in Dylan Gabriel. But he went after Dylan Gabriel had already signed there. So I don't know what the deal is. And maybe he just feels like he needs a year of development. But I thought if that's the case, you probably could have got that at UCLA. He probably would have played more at UCLA next year than he's going to play at Oregon next year.
I find it weird because there's still so many teams that are question marks around the quarterback. Like you got USC, Ohio State still has some question marks. Yeah. Florida State has question marks. I mean, you could have went to Oklahoma, honestly.
He could have went someplace and started. And like you mentioned, Oklahoma.
So, but a little weird, but
and so this is where, again, and I hate to keep saying the same thing, but this is where there's concern about, are these people getting some sort of bag, and is this an NIL deal? Oregon obviously has that Nike money. Were they able to convince him, hey, sit a year and you're going to get $3 million, to sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year, and then you'll play what would technically be his junior year.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of these transfers kind of shake out. Obviously, a few of the guys who haven't signed, like we talked about. But that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the recruiting class. We talked about the transfer portal, future transfers. We're going to be putting out the bowl projections and bowl previews here soon. And then after the national championship game, we're going to be doing recaps of all the teams we previewed. So that's going to be really fun, seeing where we went, where we were wrong, where we were right. I look forward to that. But also just kind of recapping and I guess previewing the offseason of every team too. So those are probably going to be longer videos. But it's going to be fun to go through. Like I said before, that's how we found a lot of the kind of subscribers. So thank you guys so much for checking us out. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss an upload, like the video. Comment down below who are your winners of the transfer portal, national signing day, and stuff like that. And we will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.